go. It's black right now, but I don't know if that's what's showing up. There it is. All right, my friends, we are getting things set up here and starting a little chat about cryptocurrency. Unlike TV, with the web, we're a one-man band. I'm doing it all on my own. So if I could show you actually what I'm looking at, I have a board that I have to operate, and I also have a keyboard, and I'm trying to get everything set on YouTube so that you can watch this program. So glad to be with you, everybody. A lot going on in the world today. Obviously, everything that's going on with Russia and Ukraine, we've been keeping our eyes on that, and it's been so busy with that, and all of our local news. It always keeps us busy, including some snow that you may or may not have seen that came overnight that's caused somewhat of a dicey road situation out there, so take it easy. But today we're talking about cryptocurrency, and specifically we're talking to a very special guest of ours who I enjoy talking to all the time. His name is David Derajotis. He's a cyber risk expert at Burns and Wilcox, and he's just been such a great guy to talk to for all of us. I think every reporter here at Fox 2, we always get excited when we say, we have a cyber story. Who can we talk to? Like, let's talk to David Derajotis. And my co-anchor, Taryn Asher, all the producers say, great, talk to David, because he really is an expert and the premier guy when it comes to a lot of the topics, cyber risk. You talk about hacks. I mean, there's so many things we want to talk about. But with this particular topic today, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency and taking your questions about cryptocurrency. I wanted to begin with that in just a moment. But first, I wanted to talk about Russia for a quick second here, because David, I know you talk a lot about cybersecurity and threats. Right now, the world is engaged with this conflict in Ukraine. As Russia kind of inches in, there's been talk about maybe Russia making threats with cybersecurity. What are they capable of doing? What can they do? And what are people saying right now?
First off, it's great to be back with you, to chat with you today. Always a pleasure. With regards to Russia and Ukraine, Russia has one of the most sophisticated cybersecurity groups in all of the world. And you just look back a few years at some of the things that they've been involved in. They were tied to a 2015 attack in Ukraine on their power grid. The Ukraine power grid went down from anywhere from 1 to 6 hours, depending on where in the country you were. Russia was also involved with the 2017 NotPetya malware that started off in Ukraine, but it impacted organizations all over the world. Some of the largest companies, Maersk was involved in that. It cost roughly $10 billion in damages. It was masked as ransomware. And really the intent was just to completely hobble and disable organizations, to clean out their data and make it nearly impossible to communicate. So Russia has those types of capabilities, and they've used that force in the past. I think everybody here, without getting overly alarmed, we know that Russia is typically a threat. We know that they have strong ransomware operators that operate within the country that hit organizations all over, Colonial Pipeline being a big one. A lot of them are again, they're not affiliated with the government, but the government hasn't exactly done anything to really bring justice. So I think a lot of companies today, in light of everything that's going on, need to be on high alert, need to pay attention, because we very well may see attacks coming resulting from these tensions.
All right. So, the other day, someone actually said, I'm worried about my bank account. I feel like taking my money out because I'm not sure what Russia may do in retaliation for the U.S. getting involved in any way, even with sanctions. Is that something that people should be worried about right now?
Well, I don't want to be an alarmist, but if Russia were to make some cybersecurity or cyber-related attacks, it's likely going to be on critical infrastructure. It's going to be areas surrounding transportation. It could be medical, hospitals, certainly the financial services sector, bank accounts. I don't think it can hurt to take out a little bit of money just to have some on hand. I think that's a good thing just in general, to have a little bit of a backup, but I don't think people should be rushing to the bank account to be withdrawing all their funds.
All right, I'm going to open up the old Fox, my Facebook page here, because I asked the question, what's your question about cryptocurrency? And I've been flooded with questions. And so that's what you came on to talk about today. But as usual, David, you're so good about being able to pivot and talk about anything cyber. So we thank you for taking a couple questions on that. But talking about cryptocurrency specifically, some of the main questions I've had, many people were saying, is this just a fad? Is this going to last? And some people laugh at cryptocurrency and say, are you kidding me? How should we frame this, objectively speaking, about what cryptocurrency is and how it plays a role for all of us?
Now, I get that. Cryptocurrency hasn't been around for very long. There's nothing that backs it, but there's nothing that backs the U.S. dollar as well. The U.S. dollar used to be on the gold standard, and we've been off that for quite some time now. I think you just have to look at some of the organizations and money that are pouring in to the crypto ecosystem as a whole. Last year, $30 billion were invested in crypto related projects, startups, different operations. You look at some of the companies that have put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, global accounting firm KPMG Canada. You look at publicly traded company MicroStrategy, they have 125,000 Bitcoin, more than that, as a matter of fact, on their balance sheet. Countries such as El Salvador, they've adopted Bitcoin as true legal tender. So we're seeing a lot of different organizations, governments legitimizing Bitcoin. And quite frankly, people see value in Bitcoin. It wouldn't have reached an all-time high of close to $69,000 last year. Again, it's very volatile. We've seen huge fluctuations both ways, up and down. But I think that if you're interested in this area, it's being interested in the technology, the underlying blockchain, all sorts of different projects that are being built on blockchains. So you're investing a little bit in the tech, but be very careful. Dip your toe in the water. There's certainly not the regulation. There's no regulation the way you see with your typical bank account, with money, credit cards. So just ease in with caution, do a lot of research. Bottom line, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to grow from here on out.
Interesting. All right. So you and I did a 3-part special just about 6 or 7 months ago on cryptocurrency. And I think one of the most fascinating parts to me, because honestly, when I first, a year ago heard about it, I knew it was a form of currency. Crypto means secret, kind of had this underground feel. It kind of felt like this, alt community was like promoting this thing, but really it was a real deal. And you said it was all backed by the blockchain. And I asked you the question originally, what the heck is the blockchain? What is that for those who aren't familiar?
Yeah, the blockchain's a digital ledger. Think of it as a really fancy Excel spreadsheet that tracks all of the different transactions going on all over the world. And there's no singular organization, company, government that controls it. It's supported by thousands of nodes, or really just computers all over the world that keep the system moving and keep it going. So if part of the network were to go down, you have thousands of other that are still maintaining it and keeping it going. That's the beauty of the blockchain. So it's a ledger, really. It just records all of the activity that takes place on the network.
All right, we have another question here from Stephen Pappas. Stephen is a loyal Fox 2 viewer, and he says, is the protection against fraud better than that from a centralized bank? Because that's one of the concerns that people have, I think, with cryptocurrency is, all right, I get it. There's a blockchain. I understand this. So I'm going to go ahead and make an investment. But then what if, for whatever reason, it's not backed by anything? What's the protection against fraud from like you'd have with the centralized bank?
Stephen, that's a great question. The ultimate responsibility, and this is the good and the bad that comes with a decentralized technology and currency, you are in control of it. There is no protection for fraud. There's no one to call. If you send funds out of your wallet address and it goes to somebody else by mistake, there's no getting it back unless that person, out of the goodness of their heart, they're willing to give you back your money. There's no one to call. It's not the same protection. You don't have those fraud protections or consumer protections that you see with our traditional financial and banking system. But with that said, there's nobody that can freeze your account as well. We've seen all sorts of tensions, in terms of protests, things going on in Canada, things going on obviously in Russia right now, where assets can be frozen. There's nobody to step in and freeze those assets. You are in absolute control of that. So that's good and that's bad. It's good because, again, you hold the power, but you have to make sure that you understand how you're using it, because it's up to you to ultimately protect it. The blockchain is very secure. The Bitcoin blockchain has never been hacked. It's people who get hacked. It's people who fall for scams. They accidentally give up their private keys within their wallet, and that's something that we can talk about. But the ultimate protection is the part of the consumer, the individual. There's nobody to call if something goes wrong.
And David, we should keep in mind, though, that it is for people out there who just kind of are shaking their heads going, I don't even get this. I mean, we take so many things for granted in our lives, right? I mean, the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the money we spend, and all of a sudden we're saying, oh, there's a new kind of currency out there, not just one kind, but multiple kinds. You can understand people's hesitation and also their curiosity about what this is and because it's so different.
Without question, I get it. Think of how nervous people were when the internet was rolling out back in the late 90s, 2000. It's funny because I've seen different quotes from people that said, this is just a fad. It's never going to last. Who's going to use the internet? So it's kind of funny when you look back and see some of those things. But anytime there's a new technology, anytime there's something that's out of our comfort zone, there's always going to be a learning curve. There very well may be skepticism. I get it. A lot of this stuff is very technical. There's so many different jargon type terms that are used, talking about DeFi, smart contracts, blockchain, crypto. It goes over so many people's heads. So there's a lot of education that's needed. But I think if you take the time to truly educate yourself, this really is where things are going. This is where things are going with regards to banking, financial services, loaning money, borrowing money, making investments. It's where the internet as a whole is going. If you look at Web3, that's kind of a buzzword that's thrown around right now. It's the next evolution of the World Wide Web that's built on the blockchain, self-control over all of your data, over all of your money. Take the time to do a little bit of research or a lot of research and just get to understand it. Dip your toe in if you feel comfortable. And just through that process, I think people will start to understand it more. There's nothing like rolling up your sleeves and getting in and doing it for yourself as opposed to just reading about it.
If you're watching this right now, we're having a conversation with David Derajotis. He's a cyber risk expert with Burns and Wilcox. We're talking about cryptocurrency and what it means for all of us. And, if you have a question right now about cryptocurrency, feel free to ask it. I know I see the chat's pretty active as usual here on the Fox 2 YouTube channel, so feel free to ask a question right now. In fact, I guess some funny questions too that have nothing to do with cryptocurrency. I love our Fox 2 viewers. Just some random comments here, but there are some that have to do with crypto, so we'll stick to those for now. Monique, you have a question. You say, I saw where a guy forgot his password for his millions of crypto bitcoins, and that's scary for people. And the guy apparently lost a lot of money. And she's asking, did they figure that out? Good question. He did. Didn't someone forget their password or something like that? And they, all of a sudden, they're like, really, they're out of a lot of money.
Roop, that has happened countless times. And this is the way it works. So you're responsible for, it's called self-custody. You're in control of the wallet. You're responsible for the keys, the passwords of operating that wallet. Every wallet has what's called a private key and a public key. The private key you do not give to anyone. You write down the private key, you back it up, you store it somewhere safe, put it in a safe, put it where it's not going to burn. Whoever controls the private key controls the funds in that wallet. The public key is used to generate the address. So think of like a mailbox. You tell people where to send you mail to your home, you give them the address. That's how the different wallets operate. That's where people will send you the money. The private key you can think of as your personal key to open up that mailbox and unlock it. Whoever holds the private key has access to those funds. And a lot of these wallets, you have a password that you use to log in and be able to access your wallet. It's not like other things and accounts that you log into. If you forget the password to log into your wallet, there's no password reset. You have to go back to a seed phrase, which is a string of words. It could be 12 words, 24 words that you write down that will give you back access to that wallet. And again, the seed phrase, you make sure you don't give away to anybody. The private keys you don't give to anybody. That is a secret to you. If you lose that information, the wallet is going to be inaccessible. Now, there are some services out there that will try to crack into the wallet, but it is extraordinarily difficult to do that. So that's the danger, and that's the scary part. It's the great part of decentralization and the power. But again, the power falls on you to maintain that and to take care of it and to make sure that you have control of those funds.
It's like almost like saying, look, this whole thing with cryptocurrency, it's up to the people. It's kind of like it feels very liberating for people to say, look, this isn't the centralized bank. This is our money, our currency, so to speak. And so if you want your currency, you have to have your personal responsibility. You don't have that kind of insurance that you'd have with FDIC or a bank or anything like that, right?
Spot on. This is the people's money. That's exactly what it is. Nobody can freeze your account. Nobody can get in your way. You can transact with people down the street or in another country. The power relies with you.
Okay, so we have a question from a very nice person here who's asked now 3 times. They want to make sure I don't miss their question. So I'm going to ask it. WOP, W-O-P-P, WOP. You have a question. How do I start crypto? You said, I want to start. Can you please guide me in the right way? That's a good question. People say, oh, I want to go buy cryptocurrency. And you don't want to go to the wrong place. You talk about the internet. I mean, it just feels like, even buying like a leather coat on Facebook feels dangerous these days because you don't know who the heck is on there. So, I mean, and by the way, I did buy a leather coat. I shouldn't have, but I did on Facebook. And it never showed up. So I'm just saying that there's definitely, and it wasn't super expensive, but it was like one of those like, oh, this looks like a nice coat. And it was like a fall, I don't know what it was. It was like a full leather coat or something. And I said, oh, it was like less than $100. I'm like, oh, this seems like a good deal. It was just kind of a stupid thing. I feel like I gave my money out, and every time I email them, I can't get it back. That's the kind of thing that people fear when it comes to this. So how would you tell someone like WAP to even start this process? What's the right legitimate website to go to?
Well, if you want to dip your toe in and maybe start investing, there are some safer ways if you're going to use these mechanisms to learn. There are very large exchanges. One, Coinbase, went public not too long ago. You can use a service like that. You transfer money over to Coinbase, but there you lose a little bit of power with a exchange like Coinbase or Kraken. That's another very big one. Binance is another very big crypto exchange. You're going them and transferring your money over. And then with that money that's then sitting in your account there, you can start purchasing different crypto assets. You can purchase Bitcoin, you can purchase Ethereum, other very large coins like ADA, Cardano. So I think that's a safe way. You don't have to worry in this case about making sure that you're storing the private keys properly. They store the private keys. Now, I know crypto purists would cringe at me giving that type of advice because, again, the power is having self-custody. It's having that wallet and you maintaining control over it. When you go to exchange, they maintain control of that. So they could actually lock you out or they could get hacked or something could happen. We've seen a lot of hacks on exchanges. But I think if you just want to start to ease your way into it, maybe invest a little bit in one of the countless coins that are out there, and then learn as you go through the process. Working through an exchange could be a safe way to ease into the entire process. And Coinbase is a very large, reputable exchange. If you guys saw, they did the QR code that bounced around the screen during the Super Bowl a few weeks ago. So very large company, well-funded, been growing like crazy. I think that's a good way to just start to learn and get into the process.
All right, very good. Hey, by the way, I want to apologize to anyone who's, I see some comments here saying change the thumbnail. We had the YouTube channel was streaming something else earlier yesterday, and I'm a one-man guy here. I'm just learning this system. And so I went to go, push all the buttons and get David up and make sure I'm reading the chat and getting everything set. And in the process, I didn't change that thumbnail of that picture. And so my apologies to anyone who was watching and they saw this other thumbnail from a news story yesterday. My bad. That's on me, but I'm learning. So stick with me here, all right? We're doing this once a week on YouTube, trying to talk about a different topic and get people's questions. And so we're so glad you're with us, and thank you very much for your patience on that. All right, so this person says, is Cash App safe to use for the Bitcoin purchase? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Any of these big payment processors and technology providers, again, that's a method you can use as well to kind of get into getting your feet wet with Bitcoin or any of the coins that they support. So absolutely. But again, with Cash App, a lot of the transactions are made public. So they come through like a feed, in a social media feed. So the part that I don't like is not publicly exposing all the different transactions that you're making when you're splitting a meal with a friend or making some type of payment. My advice would be to make those transactions private so people can't just go in and see that. But another relatively safe way to get involved and get familiar with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that they support.
Good stuff. I just had another question over here. A lot of people are asking, in general, they say, okay, I'm going to get started here. And I've heard some people say, don't bet any money, so to speak, or put any money down on this more than you can actually afford to lose. And so that's really an important piece of this. Talk about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Unfortunately, a lot of people use crypto as gambling. They hear all these great stories of people making it rich where somebody invested $2,000 and it ballooned into $500,000 or $1 million or several $1 million. That's gambling. If you're throwing money down and you're trying to make a quick payday and you really don't understand the project, how the coin is used, or the backers of that particular coin, you are completely gambling your money and you will more than likely lose it. There are more stories where somebody goes, I don't want to say bankrupt, but somebody loses everything that they put in, as opposed to those great stories where people are buying Lamborghinis and they're making millions of dollars. Those draw people in. That greed draws people in. So that goes without question. Only invest what you are comfortable with losing. And nobody wants to lose any money. I don't want to lose any money getting involved with this. But I look at the projects and I look at what is being developed. Is it solving any type of problem? Are you able to possibly over time, maybe holding Bitcoin, are you able to grow that and use it down the line? If you invest $10,000 or $2,000, will that grow $1,000 or 5,000 from there? You have to have more of a long term with some of these because again, it is a very volatile market. More people are coming in, more institutions are coming in to legitimize it and to give it a bit more stability. I think that will happen over time. We're just not there yet. But don't look at it as a get rich quick scheme because more often than not, that will lead to absolute failure and a loss of money.
And we've seen that happen already. We have another question here. Is it better to invest in different Bitcoins versus putting all your money into one? I know you can't give investment advice expressly here, but in terms of how to look at this and how to frame this, how would you start that process?
Yeah, definitely not financial advice. But what I would say is I think in anything that you do, Roop, diversification is key. Spread of risk will really lower the chance of having a complete failure. If one goes down and you have a little bit of spread, maybe you have a couple other coins that you put some money in, maybe those two are going to do better. Maybe those two will grow while this other one is bottoming out. So I think with anything that you do, diversification is key. Now, I know there are what I call Bitcoin maxis, that they are 100% all in on Bitcoin. And you hear the term Bitcoin and altcoins. Altcoins refer to anything that's not Bitcoin. So there are some people that firmly believe Bitcoin is the true and only one that you should be paying attention to, that you should be investing in. But again, that's putting all of your eggs in one basket. I think just a general rule of thumb is if you can diversify, it will reduce your risk overall.
Interesting. We have Shanae asking, is opting into paying employees via cryptocurrency instead of cash a part of our future?
I think that's certainly going to be a part of our future. We see some politicians that have opted, or at least publicly stated, they want to take some or part of their paychecks in Bitcoin. We've seen this in a number of high-profile athletes, particularly in the NFL, UFC, stating that they want to take part of their payments in Bitcoin. I think we will evolve to that over time. Again, it's pretty volatile right now. You see big swings upwards, swings downwards. So who would want to get paid, to Bitcoin or whatever it may be, and to see that value go down 40% overnight? Unless you're in it for the long haul, you believe in it 100%, and you don't care. You're in it for a long period of time. You just want to accumulate as many Bitcoin as possible. I could see that. But I think overall, as we have increased adoption, more companies are putting it on their balance sheets. More companies and people are investing in it. Countries are getting involved much more than they have in the past. Yes, I think that we will start to see payments made in Bitcoin and other cryptos.
All right. So Amanda's asking kind of a basic question. You mentioned the blockchain, but she's wondering, how do we plan on getting people on board for cryptocurrency in the future? I think the Super Bowl ads is probably a pretty, I wouldn't say a start. They've already been trying to get people on board, but it seems like 4 separate ads during Super Bowl Sunday. That's some prime space there to be advertising, and so that kind of proves in many ways that this is going nowhere, and it is legitimate.
It is. Well, if you look at some of the statistics, those 4 Super Bowl ads, it led to almost a 300% increase in crypto-related app downloads following the Super Bowl. So again, it is getting more mainstream attention. One thing that I think is pretty important, and that's missing right now, is regulation. Now, I think regulation is absolutely going to be coming. The president has hinted at that. The SEC has gotten involved with a number of different companies that are involved in crypto. I think once we have a lockdown regulation, hopefully that's friendly for the crypto-related industry, we will see more adoption. We will see it become more mainstream. We will see more people getting involved in it. I don't want to call it the wild, wild west right now because that's sometimes overused, but I think there still is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of education that's needed. It will come with regulation and it will come with more mainstream adoption. Super Bowl was a big help.
Yeah, Super Bowl definitely was a boost for sure. I mean, it definitely is putting you on the map if you weren't already there. Monique is asking, David, I'm older, so are older folks going to be left behind regarding crypto and Bitcoin, like how technology often leaves people behind? That's a concern. People are living longer. They're more viable. People are spending their money for a longer number of years, for many more years than perhaps the generation before. So people who are uncomfortable with cryptocurrency are going, I don't get it. And guess what? I don't want to get it. Is this something that people can opt out of, would you say, in like 20 years?
That's a great question. I think it's going to be harder to opt out of it in 20 years because it's going to touch some area of your life, whether it's, again, some type of financial service that you're involved in, whether it's borrowing money, having some type of bank account, if it's going to be receiving payments. I mean, who knows? Maybe Medicare and Medicaid and other government supported services will start running through some form of cryptocurrency. There's talk about there being a government backed currency created. So I think that people need to educate themselves. And I know it's tough because even sitting here trying to go over and learn to use the smartphone and different technology, tablets, things of that nature, there's education that's required and needed. And somebody has to spend time to help go over that. And I think there has to be an interest on the part of the person as well. Don't be scared of all the terms. Don't be scared of all the jargon. Just take time to understand it. Take time to do a little bit of research, to read up on what's going on, how the technology works, the different services and apps that are being built, how it all comes together. You have a lot of time. This isn't happening tomorrow or next year. There's going to be a long process involved in this. We'll start to see increased adoption, but it's going to be many years. So just take the time and invest some time, and I think you'll become more comfortable the more time you spend learning about it.
All right, Amanda's asking, I have $2 in it. It's down to 80 cents, but it's been 2 months and I haven't lost it yet. I don't know how this really works though. So because it's not as regulated, let's say, in terms of what we're used to seeing in, investments, like if you go to your Fidelity account and your 401k, you kind of see where things are and how things are going. People feel like they're just kind of throwing money out there and they're like, well, so now what? So how would you tell someone who has a couple bucks in there and it's down to 80 cents and they're just trying to figure out how it really works in that situation?
Let it sit, because there have been dramatic swings in both directions. And the market's up 10% from where it was yesterday. Yesterday we saw a 10% dip. There was $160 billion that liquidated out of the market with a lot of the things that are going on around the world, Russia, Ukraine. But I think just give it a little bit of time. There's a term, you hodl, you don't let go. You hold on to your Bitcoin. You let it grow. So don't rush to sell it. Especially, that's what a lot of people do. You buy high and sell low, and that's the worst thing that you can do, because you're going to lose a significant percentage of your money. And I know fear can drive a lot of that. But just give it time, because there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of speculation about Bitcoin, the future that it has, the different dollar levels that it's going to hit in terms of the value of the asset. So I think it's something that you need to take with a long-term approach, unless you're day trading, which I don't think, for the everyday person, you have to do a lot of research and make sure that you understand all the ins and outs of that. But for the average person, get it, just hold on to it. See where it goes in 6 months, a year, 2 years. It may take some time. There have been big swings where Bitcoin went up several $1,000s, then the year later it dropped down to 1,000 or under 1,000. Then it goes up to 69,000 and it comes back down to 35,000. Just give it a little bit of time, hold on to it, and see what it can develop into over the next couple of years.
Faye is saying GoFundMe was a lesson to the world. Don't let the world go digital, or the government will seize, if anything, they wish. Keep cash alive. Your thoughts on that whole sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin. It is, and other cryptocurrencies, they are like a digital cash, except with this type of digital cash, you can send it to somebody, like I said, down the street, or you can send it to somebody in another country, half the world away. You have that ability. So with a decentralized network, with crypto like Bitcoin, it gives you the ability to be in full control. No one can come in and seize your funds. No one can take control of your wallet. Nobody can lock it up. You are the only one that has the say to do what you want with it. So that's exactly the way Bitcoin is looked at. It is a peer-to-peer digital cash. So that's why it's so important. And again, it's censorship resistant. Nobody's going to come in and freeze it. Nobody's going to tell you what to do with it and lock it up. You decide.
Hey, I want to offer a compliment. Someone said, I don't know who this guy is, but he's great. Who is he? Said he's David Dirajotis, Burns and Wilcox. He's a cyber risk expert. He's on TV all the time because he does a great job. But that's a nice compliment from someone who's watching right now, David.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We also have Ted asking, who guarantees that the system is honest, stable, and transparent?
Yeah, that's exactly how the blockchain works. It's really a consensus of thousands of computers. There's no one individual that controls the blockchain, and that's why it's decentralized. It's not like a bank where you have one company that's responsible for it, one server that's responsible for it. With the blockchain, you have thousands of, they're called nodes. They're computers all over the world, and they all maintain the network. They all keep it up and running. The runtime or the uptime for Bitcoin is incredible. I mean, it's 99 point something, 99.8, 99.9, and that's higher than any other company, higher than Amazon, higher than any eBay or any other organization that's out there. So the blockchain and all of the processing, the proof of work that goes into for mining Bitcoins, it's done by groups and thousands of computers. There's no one individual.
Wow, so interesting. Any other thoughts you had about Bitcoin in general that you wanted to talk about, David, that we didn't cover here today?
Yeah, I think you look at Bitcoin and it gets a lot of bad press. You hear about all these ransomware events that take place, and people say that Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies shouldn't be around because they're just facilitating and supporting all sorts of cybercrime. I just want to share one story because I think it's important to understand that sure, some crime takes place when it comes to cryptocurrencies, when it comes to Bitcoin. That's usually the crypto of choice. When an organization gets popped, they experience some type of ransomware, then the demand is made. We saw it last year with Colonial Pipeline, 4.4 million was requested, the payment was made. But if you look at how the blockchain operates, it is very transparent. Anybody can go in and look at every single transaction that's made since the start of Bitcoin in 2009, since it's called the Genesis block, when that first transaction or that first block was made. You can look and see everything that takes place. So in 2016, and I talked about the dangers of being on an exchange. Coinbase is a very popular exchange. There was an exchange in 2016 that was hacked. And at the time, it was about $72 million in Bitcoin and coins that were compromised. Well, all of this time goes by. We're talking 2016. Just a few weeks ago, there was a couple of arrests made in New York. It was a husband and wife couple. They were in their 30s, lower Manhattan. And they were arrested for having money laundering and being involved in that hack that happened in 2016 because the FBI was able to trace all of the movements of all of the coins that took place over the last several years. And by the way, the value of the Bitcoin in 2016, it was 72 million. When by today's standards, today's rates, it was worth $4.5 billion. So the FBI was actually able to recoup $3.6 billion in Bitcoin because, again, they were able to trace all of the movements from wallet to wallet to wallet right back to these two individuals. So while crime does take place and Bitcoin is involved in a number of different ransomware operations and other illicit activity, things on the dark web, it's also very transparent. So it makes it very difficult to ultimately get away with it when you have somebody like the FBI that are getting involved, or the Department of Justice.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, Monique is asking the question, are there taxes on Bitcoin gains?
Yeah, there are. This is something that you need to be mindful of. I believe let's look at it as property. And again, this isn't financial advice. So if you were to experience a gain, growth on your portfolio, I believe the moment that you cash it out, or if you have an interest-bearing account, there are some exchanges that are set up where if you purchase Bitcoin and you just let it sit, you're able to accrue interest on it. What they do is they lend your Bitcoin out and then they pay you a nice interest rate for simply just letting it sit there in their account and giving them the ability to lend. So if you're accruing interest, you have to pay taxes on it above a certain dollar figure. And if you experience a gain when you cash out, you also have to pay taxes on that as well.
Monique actually wanted to follow up with that story, that cautionary tale, that story you told. She said, was this actually a single owner in that story?
Well, we don't know who was involved in the hack, but they moved around 2,000 different addresses and transactions that took place all over the world. So it was a husband and wife that were ultimately involved in terms of the money laundering implications of it. They cashed out in different things like Walmart gift cards. They bought NFTs, non-fungible tokens. We haven't talked about that yet, but they were involved in the money laundering. And it was, 3.6 billion that the FBI or the Department of Justice was able to recoup, but it was ultimately tied back to them for money laundering.
I just want to mention some people here asking, I love this guy. I want to know more where I can follow him. You're on Twitter, David Derajotis, by the way. Derajotis, I'm going to put the spelling in the chat here, and I'll put his name on there. David, so if you get some new Twitter followers today, that's where they're coming from, right here from the Fox 2 channel. All right, so Alexandra is saying, don't put money into Bitcoin. Russia owns it. You hear that, and you hear that over and over again. What is the connection, and is there one?
Russia does not own Bitcoin. Nobody owns Bitcoin, as a matter of fact. That's the beauty of it. So I think the tide of Russia may be coming from all of the ransomware operators that are involved, all the different hacks that have taken place, all of the different ransomware operators that are on the dark web that have compromised companies. They typically will be paid in Bitcoin, but there's no one organization, no private entity, no country that owns Bitcoin. It's truly decentralized. It's not owned by any one organization, by any one country. It's everybody.
Yeah, so interesting. Ryan is asking the question. It's the world's largest Ponzi scheme. Literally nothing is supporting it. Fluctuations to the price have absolutely nothing to do with any underlying value. But how many people are moving money in and out? Again, someone who's doubting it. We want to open the conversation up, obviously, to everyone, as we always do here at Fox, too. No one left out. That's a voice that you're hearing a lot of, isn't there, David? But how do you talk about that and educate people based on that?
It is. I don't blame Ryan for saying that at all. There have been so many people that have lost incredible amounts of money because of crypto scams, because of being taken advantage of crooks and criminals that are just looking for a quick payday, and then they leave people high and dry. I don't blame him for thinking that at all. There's no tangible value that backs the dollar. Bitcoin has value because people say it has value. Bitcoin has value because countries and different corporations say it has value. That's what keeps it going. Bitcoin's also very interesting because there will only be 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence. So it's finite. That's something that I think is very important. You can't continue to just put in new code or influx a whole bunch of new Bitcoin into the system. It's a controlled finite number that will only ever be 21 million available. And you look at the 8 billion or so people that are in the world. I think that there'll be ultimately over time more people who want Bitcoin than there is Bitcoin available for people who want it.
So interesting. Real Frog asking, should people really invest in a highly technical system like the blockchain if they have no idea how it works? I want to take it a step further. All these fears that people have right now about Russia and everything that we began to talk about at the beginning of this conversation relative to, cyber attacks and that kind of a thing. If all your money is sitting on this blockchain on the internet, shouldn't that scare people right now if they're investing a lot of money into it?
Yeah, I mean, I could completely sympathize with that. The Bitcoin blockchain has never been hacked. What's been hacked are people. What's been hacked are people who are using wallets insecurely and getting scammed and getting tricked, or like I mentioned, losing your private keys or password to be able to log into your wallet. Those are where the problems come into play. So again, I think it's very important you have to take time. You have to research and dip your toe in the water. If you want to get involved, don't put in a whole bunch of money and then use that as kind of your experiment. Just get familiar and comfortable with using a wallet. Get comfortable and familiar with using some part of the technology, and just start by investing a very, very small, even if it's $1 or $5, whatever it may be, just to get comfortable so you can start handling the wallet, start handling how money is exchanged in and out, or getting involved with the NFT. Just again, very small. That's how you learn. But the blockchain by itself has not been hacked. But where there have been problems, there's different technology where blockchains can interact with one another. That's where we've seen some very big hacks. That's where we've seen, and it gets kind of technical because you have different blockchains where you can swap coins back and forth. It's not controlled by an exchange like a Coinbase or a Kraken or a Binance, but there are decentralized chains where you can swap back and forth. Those have been hacked. There's been issues there. One happened just a month ago where over $300 million in crypto was hacked because of the design vulnerability in how the different blockchains and coins are interacting with one another. That's where you can run into some problems. But again, just take the time, do your research, and start very small in terms of the monetary investment that you make. Use it as a learning experience.
Then that's exactly what people should be doing. You mentioned NFTs earlier, so non-fungible tokens. This is literally a different language to so many people who are watching, and some people yet are very fluent in it. And so you have a bunch of people watching right now saying, what the heck's an NFT? And other people are saying, have you seen that LeBron NFT? What do I mean by that? Well, here's my small explanation, being someone who actually learned from David and some others. An NFT is a non-fungible token. It's basically, it could be an image, it could be something that someone uploads onto the computer as a valuable clip, a video clip or something, and that becomes like a baseball card, a non-fungible token. But how would you explain that even further and in helping educate people in terms of what an NFT is, David?
That was awesome, Roop. That was great. Non-fungible token. What a terrible, terrible way to describe something. I mean, it's so technical.
I agree, 100%.
I mean, that's so. What fungible means is it's exchangeable. Fungible is exchangeable. Our dollars and even Bitcoin is exchangeable. So if I have $1, Roop, and you have $1, you and I can swap that, and it's the same exact value. Same thing with Bitcoin. I have one Bitcoin, you have one Bitcoin. We can swap it. It's the same exact value. Non-fungible is, just as you mentioned, it's a unique digital asset. It's scarce, meaning it can't be swapped out with something else. If you own that piece of artwork, or you own that, like you said, a video clip, Roop, maybe it's NBA Top Shots, where it's a moment of somebody dunking a basketball or hitting a 3-point winning game shot.
Or Roop Raj and Taryn Asher and Hewell Perkins and Monica Gale anchoring the news in amazing fashion, right? I mean, that's something that people should save.
Same exact thing. That's exactly it.
No difference.
It's minting clips of some of the newscasts. That could be a non-fungible token. Absolutely. Yeah. But that's what we're talking about. It's this piece of digital value. Whether you said it's a video clip, it's a piece of artwork, it's music, it could be anything. And then it's stored on a blockchain and your ownership is verified on the blockchain. That's what a non-fungible token is.
All right. So someone just said NFTs are worthless. That's not necessarily the case. NFTs are what exactly is backing up the blockchain in many ways in terms of value, right?
That's a great comment. I mean, some of these NFTs that have been sold are mind-blowing. There was an NFT, Roop, that sold just a few weeks ago for $23 million. There was a picture of there's different collections. One's called the Bored Ape collection, but it was basically a picture of an ape. These things go for millions of dollars. Another was a very pixelated picture of somebody with a hat on backwards. And the value that these things go for is unbelievable. It's only worth what somebody's willing to pay.
So why would it be worth something, though, David? Why would a picture of an animal or a hat on someone's head, why would that have any value to anyone?
Yeah, it's interesting because maybe you could say that about a multi-million-dollar piece of artwork that's hanging in a gallery. Why would that have value? And there's a couple things that I think, Roop, that are happening. I think it could be some of the new wealth, the up-and-coming young people that have made fortunes in crypto. Maybe this is how they choose to display their wealth, as opposed to their great-grandfather that maybe had acquired family wealth and they display it by having very expensive artwork hanging on the halls. Maybe some of these younger individuals are doing it this way. Or I also think there's money laundering that's taking place as well. Because if you look at that couple that I mentioned that were recently arrested for money laundering, they were putting some of those assets into NFTs. So I think this is where a big dollar value is pouring in as with regards to money laundering and criminal activity.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you do bring up the good point. I mean, what is valuable is what people say is valuable. And it's the same thing as if you go walk into an art gallery. That's a great example you gave, David. I mean, I've walked through art galleries before, and I'm sorry to say, maybe I'm not as cultured as other people, but I sometimes look at the art on the wall and I say, are you kidding me? That's someone's paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars for, art where there's a bunch of yellow paint and a couple blue dots on it. And they say, well, if you look closely, you'll actually see the subtlety that the painter was trying to display. And you're sitting there going, no, it's just yellow paint. But to someone else, that's worth a lot. And we do have to understand that is what this NFT thing is all about. It's about the value that we say something is worth.
Well, that's it. I mean, I get this vision of, you walking into the art gallery and kind of turning your head sideways, trying to understand what it is that you're looking at. But yeah, NFTs will have broader adoption as well. We think about these funny trading cards or these different pieces of digital art that are sold for millions of dollars, but you can actually put some real world assets in terms of making them NFTs as well. Ownership of a house, maybe it's the ownership of the title of the house that can be stored as an NFT on the blockchain, mortgage related. It could be a car loan, the value of the title of the car could be put on the blockchain. So I think we're going to see more growth and more expansion into areas like that, as opposed to it just being a bunch of funny artwork that you kind of scratch your head at. How could this price have gone? Who would have paid millions of dollars for this?
Although Monique did say, "Where's my paintbrush?" and I think she's onto something. Why not? Let's start, right? Wanted to ask
Agreed.
another question. By the way, Real Frogs 2003 says, "Thank you for answering the hard questions." By the way, and a lot of these questions, they're challenging the very institution of cryptocurrency, and you're answering them not as an advocate, but as someone who knows a lot about it, and you want to help people understand this. But another question comes in saying, "Do you actually hold copyright over something that's an NFT? If someone uses that clip of someone dunking, is that yours? How does that work when it comes to copyright?"
Yeah, that's a great question. We're seeing some of these questions play out right now. As a matter of fact, StockX, which is an online reseller of shoes here in Detroit group, they launched their own NFT brand. And some of the NFTs that they created have shoes with Nikes featured in them. So Nike actually brought a lawsuit against StockX saying, wait a sec, you can't represent and sell NFTs with these Nike shoes because it's going to get confused with our brand. We're Nike. Nike's launched their own NFT collection, and they're saying that the intellectual property rights are theirs. So that's actually being played out right now as we speak. And I'm going to be watching that closely to see how this intellectual property case really goes down. I think it's going to decide some things for a lot of companies and who owns the copyright and intellectual property for NFTs.
So interesting. Let's see. We have a couple other questions here. Winston, you kind of answered this question a little bit, but just in a brief way. We're almost done here, wrapping it up. So if you have any questions on the Fox 2 YouTube channel or our streaming channels, just ask us the question right now. But Winston saying, how is it equivalent to the U.S. dollar? And he's asking what the backing is, and you explained that the people back it. But the equivalency to the U.S. dollar, is that something that's easy to draw in terms of a parallel or an explanation?
Yeah, well, a true Bitcoin maximalist will say one Bitcoin is equal to one Bitcoin. We don't like, translating it over to dollars. But in reality, all of the different cryptocurrencies that are out there will have some type of relation to the US dollar. So there are over 17,000 coins that are out there, Bitcoin being the largest in terms of the market cap, the number that are out there, the value of them that are out there. And right now, Bitcoin, it fluctuates. We have to take a look at the pricing. I think it was somewhere hovering around $39,000 today. So one Bitcoin is equivalent to $39 or so $1,000. But there are other coins that are on there where if you hold one of them, it's equivalent to 89 cents or it's equivalent to $500. So it all varies, and there is crossover. We typically associate the value of the coins in terms of the fiat value of the dollar.
Gotcha. Shanae, by the way, says thank you on my Fox 2 page. One of my Facebook pages said thank you for asking my question and getting it answered. That's one thing here at Fox 2 that we're serious about. When we say, hey, we're the problem solvers, or that, we're working for you, we don't just say that as a slogan. We mean it. Like, if there's something that we can do to help you understand the news around you, we're going to do it. And that's why we're taking to the YouTube channel once a week, every Friday, answering your questions about a different topic. And Lynn has a question, David, and it says, Lynn Waters saying, I just don't want a cashless society. Not really a question, but a commentary about what she's seeing around her. You don't see that happening, though, right? You told me that the other day.
Well, I share some agreement there, because a cashless society, you have, again, the power. The government is not watching every single thing that you do, or a particular company, big tech, is not watching every single thing that you do with that cash. You're in control of it. You decide how you're going to spend it. Cryptocurrencies, as long as they're not controlled by the government, as long as it's truly decentralized, it gives you that same type of power. You have the ability, and again, somebody can't step in and tell you that you're not going to spend it, or I'm going to take over your wallet, I'm taking over your account. It is a digital version of cash. And I do love the idea of still having cash. I would, to be honest, I wouldn't want to see it go either. I want to have that option should I want to buy something in cash. But I think having a variety of ways, whether it's credit, cash, check, which I know that's becoming a dying art right now, or cryptocurrency as well. It's nice to have a multitude and a variety of different ways to pay for things, and then having control over those payments as well.
All right, let's see. This is interesting. Someone's actually making the point, and we'll end it here just because I think you've been so good, David, about answering tough questions here. And this is a good tough follow-up that I think everyone deserves to hear the answer for. He says if you own a painting, you're physically holding it. If a wallet, which is what they say on cryptocurrency, that the wallet is there, like the online wallet. If the wallet has your painting, don't you rely on the wallet not disappearing? Wouldn't that be a larger risk than physical assets that you can hold? In other words, he's saying, what's to stop a wallet provider from actually shutting down 3 months from now?
That's a great question. And wallet can actually be a little bit misleading as it relates to crypto, because the wallet actually does not store your physical coins. It simply stores the keys for you to be able to make those transactions. So the digital asset that you own, or the coins, they're actually stored on the blockchain. And the blockchain doesn't go down. I mean, there are thousands of computers, and depending on the blockchain that you're getting involved with. And when we're talking about NFTs, usually it's the Ethereum network, which has been a huge marketplace for NFTs. But the wallet actually doesn't store that particular asset. It is stored and memorialized on the blockchain, and it's immutable. You can't change it. It's about as secure and about as tamper-proof as anything that's available. That was a great question.
Yeah, indeed. We have a lot of great questions here. Do you want viewers, or are you just talking just to talk? Well, we have viewers, lots of them, and you're one of them, and we're thankful. And we are talking to inform and hopefully get answers from David about what it is that is going on. Let's see, the wallet or ledger has only a reference to the image hosted somewhere on the internet. That's all you're buying, a reference. And that is kind of a final point, right? I mean, that is what an NFT is. It's a reference to something else.
That's exactly right. It's a digital version. I mean, we're not talking about, it's proving ownership in a digital landscape, in a digital format. That's what the blockchain is. It exists in the internet world. It exists online. There's no physical ledger that's outside of the computer.
Well, David, I don't know how much water you'll need to drink after this hour that we spent together, where you're talking about, you got your water right there. I'm glad you have refills ready to go. David, anytime that you have something going on, I know you talk to us here at Fox 2 often. You're always telling me about the things that are going on in the digital world. Let us know what's going on. Keep us up to date, especially with this Russia situation and people's concerns about the cyber threats that could be coming. You and I, let's talk in the next few days about how we can maybe do a story. And as you say, not to alarm people, but to help them understand what's going on around them and how to make sure they're safe. David Derajotis with Burns and Wilcox, thank you for your time today. If you want to follow David on Twitter, just go to his Twitter page. David, what's your Twitter page again?
It's at David Derajotis. So it's my first and last name.
Derajotis is, by the way, in the chat that we put in the YouTube channel here. It's DERIGIOTIS. David Derajotis. Look, as someone just said, I like these streams. Well, we like that you're on them too, and we're going to keep doing it. We're not going anywhere. We're right here on digital, on the streaming channel for Fox 2. David Derajotis, good to see you. Thanks for joining us as always. And thank you, all of our Fox 2 viewers, for joining us on this streaming channel. We're going to be back, every day, obviously, showing you the latest news on the YouTube channel. But don't forget, you also are going to be getting these special programs that we're putting together where we talk to an expert. We call it Your Take. What do you want to know about? What are your questions? What topics do you want us to explore? We'll go find the expert and we'll talk to them. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Have a great day.